Hello, welcome. We're going to talk about meth addiction today. Everything you need to know. Do you know that worldwide there's 26 million people estimated that use meth or abuse meth on a regular basis? Unbelievable. The problem is biggest in Asia, but it's a huge problem in the United States. In the United States, it's estimated that 2.6 million people used meth in the last year. Wow. So if you're in a crowd of like 100 people, 3 of those, on average, are going to be meth abusers.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. In 2020, 23,837 people died of psychostimulant overdose, of stimulants other than cocaine. The majority of those are meth users.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, a lot of suffering, a lot of heartache.
Yeah.
So perhaps you've struggled with meth use. Perhaps you have a family member or a loved one.
Yeah.
You know, everybody probably knows someone that's impacted by this endemic of addiction and of meth use. And it's really expanded. You know, it started out in the West Coast and it was really prominent there. And over the years, in the last decade, it's really moved across the Mississippi into the South. So we want you to understand and know everything you need to know about meth use. And my name is Dean Sinceri. This is
Holly Kim Sinceri. Hi.
And we've been dealing with treating substance abuse for decades, literally.
Yeah.
And so it's been on our experience of helping so many different people. And meth use is a unique animal. And so we want you to understand that fully. Like I said, if you're struggling with it or you have someone that you love that's struggling with it, we want you to understand what they're dealing with so that you can be the most helpful person for them possible, huh?
Yeah, I believe people can get better. There's no doubt about that. That you can get better. It's not a hopeless situation. However, that human being has to be willing to get better. They never really go to treatment for themselves. They go for themselves in the sense that there's consequences facing them. However, you stay sober for yourself. And in that process, this is not a hopeless situation, even though it can appear extremely hopeless.
Yeah. So let's talk about what is meth. Or it's actually, the full word is methamphetamine. It's a combination of amphetamine with methyl, and you cook those together and it makes what we call methamphetamine. And meth is a high octane stimulant. That's a combination of amphetamine with meth that creates a highly addictive drug.
Highly addictive.
Yes.
In the old days, we used to call it cheap cocaine.
Yeah, it releases massive amounts of dopamine in the brain, just like cocaine.
Right.
But the key difference is that it lasts a lot longer.
Yeah, and a lot cheaper.
And it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. I'm not going to say cocaine's not toxic, because it is. However, this is seriously toxic.
Yeah, well, cocaine is a plant-based product, right?
Exactly.
And this is a product that's manufactured in a lab.
Right.
And the elements, and we'll get that to a little later.
So it's a true chemical.
It's a true chemical.
There's no plant-based, nothing natural about it.
So it releases a massive amount of dopamine in the brain by activating the pleasure or reward system. Dopamine is the chemical in our brain that's the feel-good chemical gets released. And what happens is when methamphetamine gets into the system, it releases not just a little bit of dopamine,
right,
not just a medium amount, it releases a massive amount over an extended period of time. And that's why people get addicted to it so quickly, because it's so high potent.
Right, so when that pleasure button's hit, it's kind of like when you hit the slot machine, dong, you hit that button, and boy, it's like, ooh, what's going to happen? When you hit it, it stays. It's like it keeps ding, 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 and doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. But when it stops, you're on a run. And a run means, where can I get the next hit? Where can I get the next hit?
So meth can easily be made by cooking amphetamines, like they take cold medicine, pseudoephedrine, And they combine that with other chemicals such as battery acid, or they can use drain cleaner,
Drano, baby.
lantern fuel, or even antifreeze.
Yes.
So these are the elements that are being cooked in with the amphetamine and making methamphetamine. And this is what's being put in the body
To release that pleasure button. But you know, what's interesting here is that there came a point, and I'm not sure if that was in it had to be in the 90s, but when you used to buy Sudafed, exactly. And you just bought it over the counter. Now you can buy it over the counter, but you got to go through the pharmacist to get it.
Yeah.
Because this is what they started to use that was quicker than just, you know, maybe having to break some stuff down.
Yeah, they started regulating it. What happened was the supply started drying up, and they can make it from Sudafed.
Right.
And so people would go in and just buy shelves of Sudafed, bring it out to their trailer and cook it up with amphetamine and other elements. I mean, they would cook it up with the different
acid.
Chemicals,
right,
and then make methamphetamine. And so they began tracking it. You know, you can only buy 3, and then now they put it behind the pharmacy counter and so forth.
So they can track it.
So they can track it.
Well, and the other thing too is we got to think about this. This is like chemistry class, right? They're in there cooking it. I know you've seen it on TV. You know, people have seen this on TV, and it's like, oh, you know, is this made for TV? This is real life. Like they literally are cooking it, and then you see, you know, a place blow up.
Yeah, because it's really dangerous when the elements that they use, if they don't do it exactly right, it's all flammable. And they're cooking, they're using heat, and it could easily, if they don't do it exactly right, blow up. And we've seen all stories about that.
Well, and you see somebody that's high on crack, on methamphetamines, and
they're doing the cooking.
And that's who's doing the. I mean, I'm not saying there's not people doing the cooking that's selling it that are not. They're not playing, but then there comes a point when you start cooking it yourself, right? And you're high. It's extremely dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like not just suicide. It's you moving into some homicide-ish stuff because you could blow up, you know, everybody in the house plus.
Yeah, one of the questions we're asked often is, how is meth ingested? Well, it depends on how it's made. You can make it in different forms. Mm-hmm. One form you can make it is in a powder. And when it's made in a powder, it can be injected. It can be through a syringe. Just like heroin, you would use a spoon and then you would inject it. Or secondly, it would be snorted. And snorted, it gets into the system really quick. It seems like in the United States, it's often made in crystal form. Mm-hmm. You'll see those little bags with the crystals. And that's often smoked. So it's put into like a meth pipe, they would call it, and they would heat it up and they would smoke it and it would get in through the lungs. There's also pill forms that they'll make. They'll make them into pills and press them, and then you just ingest it and it gets into your body just like a pill. So the point being is that it can be ingested in multiple ways. In the United States, more than likely, it's going to be in crystal form and will be smoked.
And if it's in crystal form, they can also make it into liquid form, make it into the powder.
Yeah.
Or if it's in pill form, they can make it into the liquid form as well. You can melt it. And I think, too, is one of the things is that, you know, when you're suffering in this modality and you're addicted to this particular drug, it's talking to you. And nothing else matters at that point. Not your life. You're not afraid of death. And I know that's very hard for people to understand, but when you are in this mindset, you are not thinking about life in the sense, you're not living life. You're not interested in life. You're just interested in pressing that button.
Yeah.
It takes over everything. And it doesn't take long.
Yeah. And that's when you see people out of control and they're so much different than who they really are.
Exactly.
It's because it's taken such a great hold on them. Let's show you a couple of pictures. This is a young lady, beautiful young lady, and she's consistently using meth. And the second picture is 7 months later of consistent meth use.
You know, the way that you've got these pictures is from their arrests, right?
Yeah, these are mug shots. Like they got arrested early on in their meth using career and then ended up in the legal system again. And there was another picture taken. And so for this young lady, it was taken 7 months later. And you can see the dramatic difference of the toxicity of what's being put in her body and the impact it's having on her.
And what's interesting too is that, obviously you see the skin issues, the toxins. However, what you really see is the disformative of her face. I mean, her face is literally not the same shape.
Yeah, yeah. And just imagine what it does to your brain, what it does to your other organs.
Your liver, your kidneys.
Liver. Yeah, we're going to see a picture of a brain in a minute. Here's another picture of a man who was arrested and then 9 years arrested again, consistently using meth. And you can see the accelerated aging that occurs in 9 years. We know someone that's been using meth, and it's unbelievable how much older this person looks. Really, it looks about 10, 15 years older than they really are. And it accelerates this aging process. It's just such a horrible drug. And people see these pictures, and it just shows you how intense the addiction and how intense the desire is.
Exactly. Because you would look in the mirror and you would think, I don't want to look like this. Well, of course they don't want to look like that. But what happens is that pull is so strong in the brain and physically and psychologically and emotionally and spiritually that they don't even ever look in the mirror, you know? It's just they're looking for that one thing to make all of that go away and everything else.
Yeah, you know, if you compare it to other drugs, like heroin, the opiates have such a physical withdrawal where you get sick and you're literally trying to avoid that. The issue with meth and cocaine is the fact that the psychological addiction is so extreme. You can speak into that, but the psychological addiction is so much stronger. It's that intense dopamine release that created so much pleasure that they begin to chase, and it just takes a life of its own.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, you know, we're gonna have to take a break in a little while because I mean I haven't used meth or cocaine in over 39 years. And just sitting here talking about it, I am having psychological...
Euphoric recall?
Yeah, euphoric recall. Like I can taste it in my mouth.
Wow.
And it's like I have the drip from the drug. And that's how powerful it is. And I used for 6 years. I didn't even use for 20, 30 years. But it doesn't matter. The first time you use it makes a demarcation in your brain. And every time you use, that demarcation gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So you have a memory bank psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, smell, taste, everything that's still there. So when it gets triggered, talking about it, even in a healthy way like this, to teach so we can help others. Or if I'm watching a TV show, we're watching, Law and Order or whatever, and there's an addict on there, it doesn't take long. We haven't even been on air for 10 minutes and, I'm already having...
You're starting to have euphoric recall.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a technology called SPECT scans. And the SPECT scan basically takes a picture of your brain, and where there's a lot of healthy activity, the colors are real light. I want to show you a SPECT scan of a normal, healthy brain. And you can see in this SPECT scan that there's a lot of activity, it's healthy, there's no holes. And I want you to see and look at the brain of a meth user.
Look at the holes in the brain.
You see the holes in the brain, you see the dark spots, the different areas that there's no activity, and it's almost see-through. That's the impact of someone that's been using meth on a regular basis and literally what happens to the brain. So you can see that meth is devastating on so many levels, but this important organ of the brain, look what it does to it.
Right.
It's just extraordinary.
Well, and you think about, you have a child or a husband or a wife that, you love and been with and know that person, totally really know that person. This starts happening and you do not recognize this person, the way they think, the way they're communicating, their values, what matters to them. It's like, what happened? Well, this is what happened, the brain, the holes in the brain. That it's eaten up the part that has held value to that human being.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't come back, but that's about doing a lot of work to get there, to go back to the memory of who you really were and then cultivating that value again.
Yeah. Everything you need to know about meth addiction.
Yeah.
Another question that's asked is, how much does it cost on the streets? Well, it depends on the purity of how pure it is and the location. In general, it's cheaper in the cities because that's usually where it's brought into. Some generalizations about the cost is that a single hit can cost as little as $5. And one hit can last 6 to 8 hours. So you're looking at $5 to be able to get high, and that could last virtually almost most of the day.
Yeah.
Another term that's used is an 8-ball. An 8-ball refers to weight, or about 1/8 of an ounce, and that costs about $70 to $90 on the streets. For 1 gram of meth, sometimes it's referred to as crystal meth, the cost is between $20 and $40. A person can get 5 hits from that gram or doses and can stay high for about 35 hours.
Right. And your tolerance level goes up. So even though it may say, like, I can stay high for a day or so on $40, you may end up doing $200 of crystal meth in a day.
Yeah, so over time your tolerance level shifts, which simply means that it takes more of the drug to try to get the high that you used to get.
Exactly.
So if it took 2 to get a certain high, now it might take 3, now it might take 4 if you're just using a number. And so it does increase over time. And the other scary part is, as time goes on, it stops working as well. And you never recapture the early highs later on. So that's when it really starts to get a hold of you.
That hold button is, it's not a poker hand anymore. It's ding, ding, ding. You got to have to push the button a lot.
For a meth addict to support a habit for 1 year, typically they'll spend between $13,800 and $38,300 to support their habit for an entire year.
Right. And you're looking at, how do you work? How do you work and still be a meth addict? You may do it in the beginning, but in the end, it ain't happening. So where is the, 30,000?
Where you getting the money?
Right. Where's the 30,000 coming from? It's got to come from somewhere, because it's not like you're just gonna stop because you don't have the money. You may stop a little bit and go to work for enough to get more money to do it and go back out. So you see that recurring thing of, you got a job, you work for a while, then you save up a little bit of money, and then you go use, and then you got to get another job, and you start to steal.
Yeah.
You start to steal.
I know I have clients that come in sometimes and they've had a history of drug abuse, maybe a meth addict, and they're wanting to get counseling. They said, well, I don't have the money, man. Right. I said, well, where'd you get the money to pay for your meth?
Exactly.
You're going to pay for what's most important for you.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating stealing to come to counseling, but I am saying that if the desire is there and it's important to you, you're going to pay for what's important to you. And it's amazing how you have so many people who are meth addicts that may not be working, may not be holding a job, and somehow they get somewhere between $13,000 and $38,000 to be able to pay for their habit.
Exactly. And I mean, that's when you start to sell everything that matters to you.
Yeah. And the cost is so big financially, but it's unbelievable, the cost that it has on the family members, the cost it has on relationships, on jobs, on really their physical and mental health, and really all kinds of areas. The cost is just extraordinary.
Well, internally, the cost is your self-respect, your values, your morals, your shame level is intensified. We all have a little shame, which we need, to not run out of the house naked. But on this level, the shame, because on a deep level inside that what you're doing is not who you are, but you're also still doing it. And it ain't stopping and it's getting worse, and you're having to pretend that you don't care and live in that sick, dysfunctional modality to continue to press the button.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to recover, but it can be recovered.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Can be recovered. So what are some signs and symptoms? You may be dealing with someone that you might suspect is using meth, and you're trying to see, what do I look for? We're going to give you 10 signs to look for and may indicate that they're abusing meth. 1, awake at night, may be awake for days.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's 6 to 8 hours per hit, and there's a cycle in terms of their awaking and sleeping time is like a binge and crash cycle.
Yep.
Number 2, they may be more talkative than usual, or maybe real restless. Mm-hmm. And so, especially when they're using.
Yeah, they get up and down. So they sitting down watching a TV show, and then they get up and they go to the refrigerator. Then they sit back down, then they get up and they go to the bathroom. Then they sit back down, then they go in the other room. Then they sit back down and go, and they look like they're okay. I mean, you know something's a little off. They look like they're anxious. Maybe that's a good word.
Anxiety.
Yeah, they got some anxiety, and then you say, "What's going on?" Oh, well, you know, my job's bothering me, or my girlfriend's bothering me. Like, they'll have a reason. Oh, believe me, they'll have 5,000 reasons why they're being restless and anxious. But this is part of the process. Yeah. They're in the high.
Number 3, manic, ludicrously positive in ways that are unusual. It's not that uncommon that they even experience paranoia and psychosis.
Yeah.
Psychosis simply means that they begin to lose touch with reality and starting to see and things, experiences that are not happening right there, and they're reacting from that place.
Right, almost like a grandiose, you know, oh, I'm gonna have this new business, and it's gonna have this, and I'm gonna have these 10 employees, and we're gonna buy, and I'm gonna have 3 new trucks. It's like they on a bicycle.
I'm buying a 747 next week. Right,
they're on a bicycle, and you're like, you're on a bicycle. What are you talking about? You don't believe in me? You don't believe I can't do this? It's like, where did that? I'm not saying you can't do it, but now it's all about me because I have questioned their reality of it. And it's not like they're talking about having a dream. It's not a dream. It's not like, man, you know, I dream about, you know, going to Europe and, you know, traveling and you know, becoming a teacher over there and teaching English for 2 years. No, it's not like this. It's not a dream. It's not like I'm going to join the Peace Corps and, you know, learn and see the world. No. This is like they're doing it tomorrow. Yeah, and they don't have 10 cents in their pocket, and they don't even have their shoes on, but it's like they're talking to you as though they're the CEO and they have $5 million in the bank.
Another sign and symptom is following the awake and staying awake long periods of time. It's followed by a crashing period and sleeping for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Sometimes even for days.
Yeah. Like a teenager almost. You know how when you're a teenager, how your teenager could go to sleep and you go in there and check on them and make sure they're okay. Like, are they alive? Are they alive? You know? But it's that kind of thing. Yeah. Like they're moving and going and running and gunning, and then the next thing they're sleeping for 2 days.
Number 5, look for hair loss. Weight loss, especially quickly, weight loss, skin sores. You saw that in those pictures.
Yeah, and they'll say they're on a diet. I tried to lose weight. You saw me. I wasn't eating dinner or anything. Well, you're not hungry.
Number 6, poor dental hygiene, loss of teeth. It's called meth mouth, but part of the reason is that the methamphetamine dries the mouth out, and that dry atmosphere, you know, breeds poor dental health, in addition to just neglecting. But that's why it seems to have a big impact on their teeth and their gums. Number 7, skin problems. There's usually begin to have issues with the elasticity of their skin. That's why they age very quickly. And a lot of itching and twitching. If you see just kind of scratching and itching, sometimes facial tics.
Yeah, they're moving
their face.
Yeah.
Number 8 is financial irresponsibility. Always borrow, hey man, can I just have $20? I need this. Or, You know, someone stole
Right.
this. A lot of stories around
A lot
financial
of stories.
hardships.
Yeah. And they will make, and you will believe them. You will believe them. I mean, you know.
I got fired because my boss didn't like what the shirt I was wearing.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes
Right.
on and on and on.
Yeah, the stories get more creative.
More creative, deeper, and sometimes, you know, checks are missing.
Yeah.
Money's missing, jewelry's missing from your house.
Yeah.
Lots of financial responsibility. Number 9, signs and symptoms to look for is increased isolation and dramatic mood swings.
Yeah.
When you think about the brain having these intensive shots of dopamine, which is, it's a huge high, and then you have the crash after that, and then another intense dose. There's usually the impact of that psychologically is lots of anxiety, lots of depression, as Holly Kim was describing, just real fidgety edginess. And so that's real common. An interesting fact, too, is because of the impact on the brain, someone that has abused meth over a period of time is 3 times as likely to get Parkinson's disease.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, to think that, you know, I mean, the problem is that you don't think in this situation of the long-term effects because you're so much into, not, I mean, it appears like you're into the moment. You only care about what's happening right now. You actually just want to get away from everything.
Yeah.
You're not even, I remember I'm a recovering addict, alcoholic, and my thing was I just want to be numb. Numb was happiness. Numb was joy. Numb was everything. It was that I want to be happy. I want to use to be happy. In the end, it was that I want to use to be numb. That was it.
Mm-hmm. So those are the basics of meth abuse, meth addiction. And in our next video, we're going to get into the treatment of that. But I want to share with you a couple of resources that are wonderful resources. One is Meth, the Basics. In the description, I have a link to it. You can get that. It'll give you some of the basics that we went through today and help educate you yourself. But we also have a book that Holly Kim and I wrote, A Roadmap to the Soul. Why would that be helpful for them?
Well, it's the process that I use to really try to understand all the different modalities that I was doing to get better. And this is the way that I saw that when they were teaching me. And then I formulated this creation of what they were trying to say to me so I could get better. And through that, we wrote a book and a process on, just another way to help you get out of this.
Yeah, so it really helps you with understanding the inner workings of an addiction, how to be liberated from it.
Exactly, for the person that has it, and then liberating for the person that loves you, because we get crazy too. The person that loves you, I mean, we think we're crazy, I mean, I've been an addict and I've been married to 19, my first husband, and in that process, it was, I thought I was crazy too, and I was kind of, but in that, the book works both ways, our book especially. And then obviously the meth book to help you really understand what you're dealing with. Because each drug affects a human being differently.
Yeah.
I mean, the end result is institutions, death, and prison.
So now that you understand
Yes.
the dynamics of meth and everything you need to know to understand it deeper, the problem now is what to do when you realize that you have a problem, or when a loved one says, I need some help, will you help me get some help? So in our next video, we're going to talk about how to treat meth addiction and how to overcome it, and what is the 3-step process in order to do that. So join us in the next video, and we'll see you then.